First item is to approve the consent agenda. It's the approval of the regular meeting minutes, November 2020. Approval of the financial summaries, fund balances, authorization of payment of bills, minus Larry Benson.
Yep, and that's the amount.
Okay. And the approval of proposed agenda and approval of the additions to the substitute list. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Troy makes the motion. Dan seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carried 6-0. We need to approve Larry Vincent's bill. We need a motion. Troy makes the motion. Mark seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? 5 and 1 abstain. Motion carried. We'd like to welcome everybody. Glad you can make it. We'd like to see everybody here that can come. The next item is our monthly board report, MSBA monthly board report.
School Boards Association's board report for the month of December. We thank you for the opportunity to share some news and information during a few minutes of your board meeting. We begin with a look at the continuing impact of the coronavirus outbreak on Missouri's public schools. The latest surge of COVID-19 infections here in Missouri is making one of the most difficult school years ever even more challenging. While nearly all educators agree in-person learning is important to the success of most students, many school districts in the state have had to move to or stay with virtual instruction, at least for some grade levels. Health experts say most schools that have reopened in person with appropriate protocols have not had significant outbreaks within the school setting, and that most of the virus spread is occurring in the community, not in school. Nonetheless, the recent surge has caused more students to be learning virtually, mainly due to staffing issues and the severe shortage of substitute teachers. At a recent news conference announcing new quarantine guidance for Missouri schools, Commissioner of Education Margie Van Dieven said some students continue to struggle with virtual instruction.
Some students are doing quite well in this virtual environment, but others do not. And that's despite our teachers' best efforts. We're seeing our families struggle with significant amounts of stress as they try to keep up in a distance learning model of instruction. In particular, quarantine students may have difficulty interacting with their teachers to get the support they need, as many of those educators are also trying to teach their students still in person in their classrooms at the same time. Now, our teachers have been working tirelessly to meet the needs of all students wherever they are. But quite frankly, it's exhausting.
Educators and school board members throughout the state are also increasingly concerned about students who have become disconnected from school altogether as a result of remote learning. MSBA continues to update COVID-19 related resources available on our website. The 2021 regular session of the Missouri General Assembly convenes on January 6th with a legislature that is largely unchanged as a result of the November elections. Republicans retain solid majorities in both the House and Senate, while current Governor Mike Parson was elected to a 4-year term. MSBA Associate Executive Director for Advocacy, Mike Reed, tells us he expects some familiar issues to be discussed during the session, including voucher proposals and charter school expansion beyond St. Louis and Kansas City.
A number of people have been pushing for vouchers and some sort of tuition tax credits in light of
of what has happened with the coronavirus and schools not meeting online and meeting virtually, there has been ideas floated that because of the virtual education, parents should be able to receive some sort of payments to help for payment of outside people for tutoring or other situations. And I believe this is going to just be another outgrowth of that, and I think we'll see a big push for that this year.
Reed also says to expect an effort to establish virtual charter schools in Missouri.
If you're using public money, you should meet the same standards as other public schools. You call yourself a public school and you walk as you take public money, then you need to meet those same standards. That's where we are. We believe that we could go toe to toe with charter schools. Everybody should be on the same level playing field and everybody should meet the same standards. We believe that that's where it should go.
MSBA will strongly oppose any legislation designed to remove curriculum decisions related to virtual courses from the local school district and will support legislation that increases accountability and oversight of charter schools. We'll be keeping you informed on developments during the legislative session through our weekly Legislative Voice newsletter, critical issue alerts, and immediate updates through Twitter. Information on legislative issues also can be found on MSBA's Action Center website. While most Missouri students have access to at least some school-based health services, there are significant gaps in providing those services to students in the state, according to a survey conducted by the Show Me School-Based Health Alliance of Missouri. The first ever Missouri-wide census of school-based health programs reveals 57% of Missouri students have access to at least one health service through their schools, but nearly 400,000 students do not have access to any services. The census shows significant gaps in health services for students in some southeast, southwest, and northwest Missouri counties. Molly Ticknor is the executive director of the Show Me School-Based Health Alliance of Missouri, and she says health services available in the school setting can help keep students in school.
We have parents that have had to leave their jobs to go pick up their student if they're ill or if they have a mental health issue. And sometimes parents can't take off. Sometimes parents have jobs where they cannot leave. And so being able to consent for treatment from the school-based health provider as a parent to serve the immediate needs of that student and figure out what's going on and assess that and treat them on site, whereas potentially they would have had to go home or go to a hospital to get treated. So it really definitely reduces some barriers that our parents and our students face.
School-based health services can include mental behavioral support, physical health, primary care, oral care, and vision care. School-based health programs generally work in partnership with other healthcare providers, such as federally qualified health centers, nonprofit community-based organizations, hospitals, community mental health centers, and local health departments. Many school-based health programs also serve school district faculty and staff, along with families and community members. The Show Me School-Based Health Alliance of Missouri exists to improve the health of children and youth by advancing and advocating for school-based health care. The organization's goal is to ensure all children and adolescents are healthy so they can achieve at their fullest potential. That's it for this month's edition of the MSBA Board Report. Thanks for allowing us to have some time at your board meeting, and so long from Columbia.
Our next item is our Ava Board Spotlights under public comments. Dr. Dow.
We have Baylon Alexander, who is our student board member, has another ball game tonight, and Dr. Nash is going to talk to us about next year's student board member. We tried to make it a priority that they could be here, and she's going to talk about that during her report. But I know Baylon's missed several. Of course, we had COVID for part of that, but Baylon's been very busy in student activities, but we do want to thank her for the time that she did commit to us. Our local district partner that we want to talk about is the Ava Assembly of God. They took it upon themselves this fall to work with some non-for-profit organizations in Springfield, Convoy of Hope, United Way, to provide meals for families. They have done that solely on their own. They came and visited with me before they started that program and asked about the need. You know, we provide a backpack program for many of our kids through our title funds, but that's really for the kid. They are providing meals for the family. So we want to thank Buddy Boyd and the Ava Assembly of God. Mark's going to stand in as a representation for them, but we just appreciate the work that they have done in supporting our community. So, okay, thank you. I'll get with Buddy and we'll get something in the paper for that. So, okay.
Good.
Yep.
Next is our principal and director report. Elementary principal, John Hall,
He is gone.
he's gone. Middle school
She is
principal,
supervising the ball game.
Patty Nelson, she's gone. High school principal, Dr. Teresa Nash.
I would like to introduce you to our new student advisor to the board. This is Jansen Brashears. Jansen is the son of Terry and Missy Brashears. He is involved in band, Tri-Am Music Honor Society, jazz band, both in middle school and high school, and choir. In the community, Jansen has helped put food baskets together for needy families during Thanksgiving, and has helped at church putting together bags of groceries for families within the community. After high school, Jansen plans on attending college in order to obtain a degree in mathematics and minor in music. Mrs. Jansen.
Thank you.
Jansen, we're excited to have you, and that will be your seat right there at the end. So I'll catch up with you before our next board meeting, and we'll go over things, okay?
Special Service Director, Ms. Melissa Dalton.
For our department right now, we just finished up, as of 15th, reporting our December count of all of our students as of December 1st that have an IEP, so we have to turn that information into the State Department, so we took care of that this week. As of last week, we had 14 initial evaluations going and 13 reevaluations, and as of last week, we have dismissed 9 students from special services because they no longer exhibit a disability. I wanted to follow up a little bit after last month's board meeting. You guys asked me to check on some items, and so I've been working on that. Just a little bit of feedback. We had talked about a behavior specialist coming in, and she did come in 2 weeks ago. I talked to her this week, and I'm supposed to get her report tomorrow, so I wish I had it before tonight, but tomorrow I'll have some more information on the sensory room we talked about. I talked to my therapist about getting me a list of the items they're in need of, just a few examples: weighted blankets, gated belts, some swings. We have the swings. We need a device to hang the swing on. Just some things that they see some of our kids can utilize, so they're working on that for me. I'm touching base with teachers to kind of see where their needs are at this time. We've kind of survived the COVID storm that we had at the start of the year, and so now they're having a little bit more time to process, so they're working on giving me some ideas. I'm currently researching just some things that would help district-wide. I have Amy Pitts coming, and she is the compliance director for our Southwest Missouri region through DESE. She's over all the schools in Southwest Missouri and works for DESE. And she is coming January 26th. That was as soon as I could get her to come, but she's going to come spend the day with me and just kind of review our department and see where, you know, we could beef things up, where we're already doing things well, and just where we could use some additional resources. So I'm really excited to get her, but that was as soon as I could get her with her schedule. I've looked into some outside testing options, and I think I had touched base with you guys last time. You kind of asked me what I thought was our biggest need at the time, and the behavior area was what hit me first, and I said that because I feel that not only touches on the kids, it touches on the special ed teachers, it touches on the regular ed teachers, it touches on administration. If we can help with those behaviors, it helps everybody in the process. And so that's what I'm working on. I talked to a company this week that came in and did our behavior analysis, and just looking at an applied behavior analysis therapist, possibly being able to come in on a regular basis to help with kiddos, to help with training of teachers, and just to give us some ideas where we can help with those behaviors. So I'm working on it for you guys. I'm hoping to have more next month, and then even more in February after Amy comes on the 26th. So I'm working on it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Maintenance Director, Mr. Monty Valentine, he's not here. Can you give us an
No, I
update
can't
on
give
his
you an update.
condition?
So he got to come home, but he's gone back. He had to go back to the hospital last night, and thought he had a blood clot in his lung, so he had a stroke last week. You all know that. But was recovering pretty well from that. Got to come home on Friday, was home over the weekend, and then went back last night. They thought he had either a blood clot or a embolism in his lung, and now he has COVID. I just got that text about 20 minutes ago. But he texted BJ today. He actually came and saw us yesterday, stayed for a few minutes, had his mask on. But just tired, but wants to come back to work. So I told him he couldn't come back till the doctors cleared him. So this will take a couple days to get the clot taken care of. And right now we're doing well. We do have some of our maintenance guys out with COVID, but I've got a lot of work done actually this week. So I meet with those guys every morning and kind of plan out the day and get moving. So we'll be better off when we get next week and get all the other two back that are gone.
Hopefully Monty gets
Yeah.
gets the other one.
He's got good spirits. Just got to deal with it.
Executive and administration reports. Dr. Dow.
So Mr. Dalton, I'll tag team a little bit of this as we go through it, but just kind of a COVID update as of today. We've had 53 total positive cases of COVID between teachers and staff in the school district. We've had 354 staff or students quarantined because of being close contacts. And actually we need to add one more to that. It's 355 because I got one after I wrote this report. We currently have 8 students or staff that are positive, and we currently have 33 students and staff together that are out on quarantine. Met with Mock this week, just as we do with our flu clinic. When the COVID vaccines are available for staff, and we are 1B on the list. Teachers are 1B on the list. We will offer that just like we do flu shots. Anybody that wants to sign up to get it, when it's available, Mock will come to school and give the vaccine to teachers that choose to take it. We obviously will not mandate anybody that they don't have to take it, but we will make it an option for them, and our insurance, district insurance, will cover it. There's no cost to them. COVID dollars from the county are about out, but as of tomorrow, when I turn in the last set of bills, we will have requested and received $167,428.95 in materials and supplies from Douglas County. This does not include the disposable masks that have been received from the health department. So we are very thankful to our county commission and Carrie Davis for their work in making sure that we were a priority in getting COVID dollars. So we've got, the total was, we got over 10% of the total amount that the county received. So the county received 1.5 million. We got 167,000. So we're thankful to them. Kind of on the cafeteria, I'll jump to the cafeteria, and then we're going to jump back to virtual instruction and what we're doing with that. So far, I have visited Kirbyville, Monette, and Logan Rogersville. 2 of those places have their directors are officers in the state organization. We got to meet with them and gain some great information. So we are in the process with Springfield Grocer of getting that account set up. It's gone a little slow to get off the ground just due to their contract with OPA. They're under contract with Open until the 22nd. But they have opened things up for us. We should get our first set of menus on Monday, so we can look to make changes to those menus and adjust as how we want them to be. As long as they meet federal guidelines, we can kind of manipulate that however we want. I have the account set up with Highland Dairy, and we're good to go there. And I'm working with Kent Johnson, at Town and Country. So the feedback I got from the directors was, don't use Springfield Grocer or Bimbo for your bread. Use Harris. So those three districts work with Apple Market, which is a local grocery store in their district. And they get their bread from Harris Bread Company out of Arkansas, and they think it's a better quality at the same or lesser price. So Town and Country uses Harris Bread Company. So I've met with Ken. You can't buy it straight from Harris, you have to go through one of their supermarkets. So I met with Ken, and we have a plan. He's actually going to be giving me pricing tomorrow, so we're going to sit down and talk about our bread orders. We only have to order a week out, so that'll make it easy, and he and I will figure out the delivery and receiving of the bread. So I think that's good. We can keep our local business, we keep business local with Town and Country, and obviously Buddy Irby is our Highland rep, and he's always served us, but he's just transferred the account over to the school district starting January 5th. Let's see. It's going to take some work over break, but we are going to be ready for students on the 5th. I think Dina mentioned, I invite you to come eat lunch on the 5th if you so choose. We'll make a spot for you in the cafeteria, so we're looking forward to that. Board of Education signups currently open and will remain open until January 19th, 2021 at 5 p.m. We currently have 2 people who have signed up to run for the 2 spots we have available. That's Mrs. Parsick and Mr. Bedecker have signed up for those 2 spots at this point. So on the financial news, we don't have any new financials from the state. We won't get those till tomorrow. But from my commissioner's conference call last week, we're looking about the same we received last month at about a 90% proration factor. So we'll still be carrying through short on state dollars. But on the good news, and I had to write it because it was after I'd already typed this, I was researching some more on kind of what they're doing at the federal level. Could be, some people may think it's good news, some may think it's bad, and I have mixed feelings about it, but both houses are working, so they have to pass a continuing resolution by Friday night or the federal government shuts down. And they are trying to tie the continuing resolution to a another stimulus package. So I think the continuing resolution was in the trillions, 1.6 trillion, 1.2 trillion. The stimulus package that they're trying to couple with that is $900 billion. Part of that is continuation of unemployment and an extra bump in that unemployment benefit for a period of time. I think there are $600 stimulus checks in there as well. Education is included in that stimulus package. We don't know for sure how much. Last time I heard it was 90 million. It could be up, it could be down from that. Did you? 54. 54 million, so it's down? Billion. 54 billion.
Yeah.
Okay. It's hard to keep track of. It changes every day. What's going to be included in that and how it has to be spent, we won't know that, obviously, for a while. The last thing I read is they were concerned that they would not have that CR passed by tomorrow night, and it may go into next week. So if it does not pass by tomorrow night, there'll be a government shutdown over the weekend. What does that affect? State parks, some services, essential employees will still be employed, but non-essential, which would be state parks, et cetera, it looked much like our last shutdown that obviously lasted longer. They do anticipate something passing, at least a CR before they go home for Christmas.
Someone said he wouldn't let it go home until they passed.
So, yeah, I read that So speaking about legislation, so there's been over 200 bills pre-filed between the House and the Senate just on education. But if you remember last year, I think we got to over 600 at one point. Most of those don't see a light of day, but Mike Reed was talking about voucher bills. Another form of that is what they call open enrollment. So you receive a voucher to take your kid to any school district you want. I frankly, I don't know how I feel about that. I think the Ava School District would actually benefit from that. I think it could really hurt some of our K-8 partners because they could get a voucher to send their kid to Ava. Just, we're larger, we can offer more programs. But anyway, so on the education side of COVID, Mr. Dalton and I, we've talked about this for the last couple of months about our virtual students. Mr. Dalton's going to share some numbers with you about where we were and where we think we're going to be starting in January, about kids that are still virtual versus kids that are coming back. Principals have done a really good job with sending letters and emails and contact calling those students and parents. So
we met with principals today to go over kind of where the numbers are.
as of today.
Yeah, as of today, looking ahead into when we come back in January. So I was just looking at the report. So since I submitted this last Friday, those numbers have changed pretty drastically. So at our highest, we had over 300 students who were virtual. What we are anticipating as of today is that number is going to be around 80 students that are virtual when we come back for second semester. What that does, and I'm saying standalone virtual classes, we've kind of talked through this, so I'm going to use Mrs. King for an example since she's sitting here. You're welcome. You know, typically what she has, she will have 6 8th grade math classes. And when I say a standalone virtual class, when we went through those numbers, if there were enough 8th grade students, she had 5 seated classes and 1 class period dedicated for virtual students. Okay, so when I say standalone virtual classes, that's what I'm describing. That looks a little different at elementary than it does middle school and high school. Elementary, they're self-contained, they're with the same teacher basically all day long, whereas middle school, high school, they're rotating through classes. So we've had basically 30 standalone virtual class periods, classes and class periods this semester. Depending again on some of these numbers fall, we're looking at 5 standalone virtual class periods. And we've talked and you hear the reports and all the data we see. You know, we believe that for the vast majority of our students, being here in front of our teachers is their, you know, the best chance to be successful with their education. So we do. We feel like, you know, like there's lots of factors that impact that. You know, one, if folks are more comfortable or I'd like to think, you know, the measures and steps that the buildings are taking are effective. 2, you know, for a lot of them, it's just that they realize they're not being successful virtually and that they need to come back to the classroom. The other part, what that does, we think it'll positively impact some classroom numbers. You know, when I have to set aside a class period for virtual students, you know, when that number's 25, that means my seated classes, you know, when I go back, or 5 seated classes, you know, that's fine. Well, as I start having kids come back, that impacts my seated class periods. But what we're anticipating, you know, where before I might have had 25 8th grade students who were virtual, if now we're talking about 5 kids that are virtual, well, now she's going to go back to 6 seated classes, and now we're looking at some different programs to serve those students that are virtual, whether it's, here's talking about Launch, that's a partnership, Springfield Public Schools, they do online classes. You know, when we had enough to justify a standalone virtual class, what we believed was best for our kids is to work with an Ava teacher that they had a relationship with, they can get help here. When we have a handful of kids, make sense, you know, for a teacher to have to try to, all right, we're gonna do 60 classes and try to meet that need that way. So again, it changes some of the dynamics in some of those classes. Again, look at some online programs for those small groups of students. Just because logistically it's not feasible for that to be its own standalone class. Excuse me. But yeah, we think that's better for our kids. We, you know, as we look at some of those numbers, it's going to be some work for counselors and principals as they navigate some of those changes as we get that information finalized. But we believe overall that's a positive. Other thing I wanted to touch on that I mentioned in there, I want to be sure to emphasize, there's talk about state testing. You know, what is that going to look like? What's that impact going to be? We did get word in the last week, we are going to do assessments. It is not going to be used for accountability at the federal and state level. So the follow-up question might be, well, why are we going to do it? And the answer is, that information is valuable to us. You know, whether it's assessing curriculum or, you know, our pacing guides, those kinds of things. You know, teachers are used to being able to go through and look, all right, this unit, hey, it was effective for this group of kids. It's something we're going to continue. Or we may look at, hey, here's something we're using, or a resource. We talk about curriculum resources. You know, we use those assessments and those results to evaluate lots of different aspects here at school. I mean, whether it's our resources or the way our curriculum was aligned. So we will have those assessments, but it will just be information for us to use here, for teachers to have that information as they make decisions on how they map out those units. And again, as we look at curriculum and resources and those types of things. But I wanted to be sure to emphasize that. Any questions? All right. That's all I've got.
So is that your report?
Yep.
Or do you have it?
That was
Okay.
You bet. Just sleep right over it.
Next is our discussion and action items. Item A, Flex Plan, Section 125 renewal.
This is a renewal that we do yearly, starts January 1. So this program allows our employees as a pre-tax flexible spending plan. Child care and medical expenses are allowable under this plan, and money comes out prior to applying the tax rate, so it saves the employee money through tax savings, but it does require an annual adoption by the Board of Education.
We need to approve this. Do I have a motion? Mark makes a motion. Do I have a second? Dan seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passed, 6-0. Next item is our Belcher Scholarship.
12 people, 12 students apply for this.
I mean, you want over,
Or just one, or we can do 3, however you want to do it, however you guys want to set it up. You can do your first, second, third choice, you can do your first choice, however you want to do it.
Everybody want to do it?
well, probably I'll do at least 2 so you can see.
So rank your top and your,
I'm gonna do 3.
but make sure I can tell if it's your number 1, your number 2, your number 3. I'll have to figure out how to add it up. Can you write a formula for that real quick, Mr. Hall?
Who's getting them, BJ? Oh.
You have to make sure there's no confusion.
Yeah, so I can tell you who it is.
Last year, we did that for $500, and I don't remember hearing a dollar amount mentioned this year.
So it's the winner locally gets $500, and then they get the option to move on to the state award, but we do a local 500.
But didn't we last year, didn't we up it to 1,000?
I think we up to 250.
Oh, okay. I knew we upped it, okay. much did they get at the state level? Did they win?
1,500, I think's the number.
Next motion's up at the state level.
No, Ava R-1.
2,000.
Oh, they were good. They were good.
Justify a standalone virtual class while we believe it's best for our kids is to work with an Ava teacher that they had a relationship with, they can get help here. When we have a handful of kids, it doesn't make sense, you know, for a teacher to have to try to, all right, we're gonna do 60 classes and try to meet that need that way. So again, it changes some of the dynamics in some of those classes. Again, look at some online programs for those small groups of students. Just because logistically it's not feasible for that to be its own standalone class. Excuse me. But again, we think that's better for our kids. We, you know, as we look at some of those numbers, it's going to be some work for counselors and principals as they navigate some of those changes as we get that information finalized. But I do believe overall that's a positive. Other thing I wanted to touch on that I mentioned in there, I want to be sure to emphasize, there's talk about state testing. And what is that going to look like? What's that impact going to be? We did get word in the last week, we are going to do assessments. It is not going to be used for accountability at the federal and state level. So the follow-up question might be, well, why are we going to do it? And the answer is, that information is valuable to us. You know, whether it's assessing curriculum or, you know, our pacing guides, those kinds of things. You know, teachers are used to being able to go through and look, all right, this unit, hey, it was effective for this group of kids. It's something we're going to continue. Or we may look at, hey, here's something we're using, or a resource. We talk about curriculum resources. You know, we use those assessments and those results to evaluate lots of different aspects here at school. Again, whether it's our resources or the way our curriculum was aligned. So we will have those assessments, but it will just be information for us to use here, for teachers to have that information as they make decisions on how they map out those units. And again, as we look at curriculum and resources and those types of things. But I wanted to be sure to emphasize that. Any questions? All right. That's all I've got.
So is that your report?
Yep.
Or do you have it?
That was,
Okay.
you bet. Just slid right over.
Next is our discussion and action items. Item A, Flex Plan, Section 125 renewal.
This is a renewal that we do yearly, starts January 1. So this program allows our employees as a pre-tax flexible spending plan. Child care and medical expenses are allowable under this plan, and money comes out prior to applying the tax rate, so it saves the employee money through tax savings, but it does require an annual adoption by the Board of Education.
We need to approve this. Do I have a motion? Mark makes a motion. Do I have a second? Dan seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passed, 6-0. Next item is our Belcher Scholarship.
12 people, 12 students apply for this.
I need you one over.
Or just one, or we can do three, however you want to do it, however you guys want to set it up. You can do your first, second, third choice, you can do your first choice, however you want to do it.
Everybody want to do it?
How do you want to do it?
Well, probably I'll do at least two so you can see.
So rank your top and your,
I'm gonna do three.
but make sure I can tell if it's your number one, your number two, your number three. I'll have to figure out how to add it up. Can you write a formula for that real quick, Mr. Dalton?
Who's getting them, BJ? Oh.
No.
All right.
You have to make
So it's the winner locally gets $500, and then they get the option to move on to the state award, but we do a local 500.
But didn't we last year, didn't we up it to 1,000?
I think we upped to 250 and 500.
Oh, okay. I knew we upped it somewhere. Okay. And what did they get at the state level? If they went?
1,500, I think's the number.
Next motion up to state level.
No, up our level.
15,000.
Oh, they were good. They were good. They were, it was tough.
All right, on the winner is
Yeah.
Layla Giorgiani,
Which number was she?
number 1.
She was the best one.
That's who it was. And number 2 was Paige Kimmons. With
And which one was she?
Number 9.
Aha, see, I picked that one too.
Who else did? Who else did that?
Those, they were runaways. Layla had 14 points, Paige had 10.
Both of them were very good.
There was a lot of good ones in there, actually.
Oh, my gosh.
The first,
Yeah, it was very
the
hard.
first 5 was,
Yeah.
All right.
good.
Yep.
Well, wait a minute, I wanted to ask, so can we up the amount for, local or not?
The board can do whatever they choose to do.
Well, I'm asking. Okay, then I make a motion that we up it up to $750 this year.
Motion's been made to up it to 750. Do I have a second?
Better second that.
No, I'm sorry. I'll do it.
Thank you, Dan.
Just comes down to the board account.
That's okay.
Dan, second. Do we have any discussion?
See how much is in the checkbook.
Oh, would you quit? There's money there. Give me a break.
We did save money with MSBA.
See? We didn't go to, what's his place, so we saved a lot of money. There we go. Let's give it to the kids.
Kansas City.
That's right, let's give it to the kids.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Raise your hand.
Motion carried.
See what I know the name was?
You couldn't vote no.
I just never saw the checkbook. It's always in there.
I'm the treasurer. I know.
Oh,
There's
okay.
money in
Forgot.
there.
I forgot.
Okay, thank you. We're good.
We're getting there.
Duh.
All right.
Item C, extracurricular or co-curricular activities review. Dr. Nash.
So Dr. Nash is being put on the spot, but I'm going to try to help her. Coach Sawyer is at home quarantined. I'm expecting a positive result tomorrow. So you have seen this because I uploaded this to you. It's what he does every year with a number of participants. Actually, we've grown. Our football numbers have grown. Our volleyball numbers are good. Our numbers are good in our extracurricular activities. But he's not here to talk to you about that. If you want to put me on the spot, I can try to answer him, or you could ask the assistant basketball coach, and he'd be happy to answer any of those. But
Volunteer.
he is not here to answer the hard questions. So Dr. Nash has the co-curricular numbers, correct?
Correct. And extracurricular. So what I'm going to talk to you is more about the clubs and the things that we're doing. It's been several years ago that there was a committee
some of the ways we're able to interact with our community and our parents and share information. I think the same thing, I'm going to share some data on the A+ program review that I think has absolutely increased just because of this type of interaction. But I'm going to go through this information. What you see there, that first chart, and I'll explain some of that information. ELL, those are English language learners. Those are students that English is not their primary language. For us, that is not a significant population. I think we have one student in the district, but that's something that all districts monitor for to make sure we're meeting those students' needs so that they can be successful. You see migrant and homeless students. Again, there are definitions in place, and there are ways we monitor students' living situations to see if there are services we need to provide to help them be successful. But that's just part of the process with federal programs. You go down to that next chart, and you see those boxes are checked. Title 1A, Title 2A, Title 4. Those are the programs we participate in. Again, a lot of that comes from census data. Funds are allocated based on those numbers. For us, the vast majority, when you hear us talk about our federal programs budget, the vast majority of that money is Title 1A. Those dates of review, you see that it shows the date in November. What happens with those budgets? So every year we go through a review process on site with community, with teachers, with parents, and we submit that. That's due the end of June every year. So you submit it at that time, and it's reviewed by our supervisor at the state level. Well, anytime you have to make a budget amendment, you submit that again, and they go through the entire thing again. So every year when we do this, whatever the last time is that was reviewed, I put that date for you all. If I have to submit a revision later on this spring, that it gets reviewed again at that time. It's just it's a pretty thorough process. You go over to the second page there, and I believe I uploaded that with a typo on the date there. It says sources used to determine the extent to which these goals are met. You see surveys of staff, community, businesses. You see assessment statistics, financial revenues, expenditures. We review those budgets. Staff evaluations. That line there. So again, we do a review and evaluation of it every year locally. Again, community members, parents, teachers. We have to go